Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Second Time Around, the Kitchen Spoons and Combat Boots Multimedia Educational Series. I'm Candace Bryan Bro, the Senior Family Readiness Support Assistant for the Vermont Army National Guard. And with me today is...
Hi, everybody. This is Marcy Caulfield, your State Military One-Source Consultant.
Hi, my name is Michaela Lacoste. I'm the Family Readiness Support Assistant for the 86 IBCT.
Thank you so much, ladies. Before we begin, I'm going to read our disclaimer for the information being presented. The resources provided on Second Time Around does not constitute endorsement by the Department of the U.S. Army, U.S. Air Force, Vermont National Guard, or Vermont Military Family Programs of the organization's products and/or services contained therein. Further, Vermont Military Family Programs assumes no responsibility for consequences resulted from the use of the products or services provided by the organizations or resources listed. Vermont Military Family Programs makes every effort to present our clients with reputable resources. We cannot guarantee the validity of said resources, and use of such resources is voluntary. So each month, we feature a different topic. And if anyone listening has suggestions for future topics, please feel free to reach out to one of us via email. Our contact information can be found on the corresponding slide deck. Awesome. And so since we have the administrative slides out of the way, we're going to go ahead and get this party started. So I'm going to start handing it over to Brian Stoudnauer. Hi, Brian. How you doing?
Good, Candace.
Awesome. So Brian is the Vermont Army National Guard Lead Child and Youth Program Coordinator. And he is going to be walking us through Revitalize Your Relationship with Youth. So go ahead and take it away, Brian.
Great, Candace. Thank you. I'm stoked to be here. So today we're going to look at our relationships with our children. And that's just not your personal children. It could be children that you work with, if you work with kids or youth. It could also be kids like your nieces, your nephews, some younger cousins. And what we're really going to do is we're going to focus on 5 key areas of those relationships that can really make a difference for our kids in all areas of our lives. So as Candace mentioned, I am a contractor. I'm on the the National Guard Child and Youth Services contract, which is a national program. And there I have a colleague in all 54 states, territories, and districts. And as you can see on this slide, if you happen to be looking at the slides, you can see our mission statement there and the goals at the national and state level for our program. So today, what we're going to be talking about is we're really going to be talking about the how and why relationships are at the heart of what youth need to learn, grow, and thrive. Understanding this will assist you in being better able to meet the needs of your kiddos, enabling you to strengthen and or rejuvenate ones that may be suffering. To get us thinking about the ways we help our children grow up, let's first think about what we experienced with our own parents and other adults in our lives. Although some of us may have had difficult relationships with our parents or other adults, we're going to focus on the positive things that important adults did for us as we were growing up. We got to fight that negativity bias. So what I'd like you all to do is I'd like you to just take a minute, either think about or write down a significant person that was involved in your life when you were a child. After that, I want you to put some time into contemplating the positive things that he or she did that did make a difference to you, that positively impacted your life. We're going to start with the 5 keys to a strong parent-child relationship. And again, I am going to say parent throughout this and child referring to your immediate child, but really these rules and these strategies, so to speak, can be applied to any relationship that you have with youth. All right, so number 1, we're going to look at express care. So this is how you would show your children that you enjoy being with them, that you care about the things that are important to them. Number 2, we're going to talk about challenge growth, helping children to see possibilities for their own future, and encouraging them to work hard to be their best. Number 3, provide support. Guide and encourage your children as they work to complete tasks and achieve their goals. Number 4, share power. Take your children's ideas seriously. Work together to solve problems and reach goals. expanding possibilities. Number 5, help children connect with people, ideas, and opportunities that help them to learn and grow. It's been shown that when kids experience these 5 qualities in their relationships, they are more likely to grow up well, to be a better person. They're more likely to do better in school. They're more likely to be a more caring adult and human being, to develop attitudes and skills that will help them throughout their lives to be a more positive contributing member of society. They also become more resilient, which helps them overcome challenges they face in life. And in fact, research suggests that strengthening these 5 areas of our relationships is one of the most important things we can do as parents for our kids. So bottom line up front is that relationships, they really, truly matter. They really, truly matter. All right, so we're going to start at the top of that list of 5. Start out with express care. So what does this look like? Number 1, be someone that they can trust, right? From their point of view, be somebody that I can trust. Number 2, really pay attention when we're together. Be present, be with me, beside me. Don't be in front of me, don't be behind me. Be with me and be present in that moment. Number 3, make me feel known and valued. See me as I am here in front of you and beside you. Number 4, show me you enjoy being with me. Be loving, be caring, be warm with me when I'm with you. Number 5, praise me for my efforts and achievements. Encourage me, right? You don't have to win to have a successful experience. So encourage them and be with them in that moment of their personal success, whether or not you view it as a success or not. It's their experience. It's their life. So what can you do? Here are some ways moms, dads, and other parenting adults express care to their kiddos. You can focus on your children or teens when they're talking about things that matter to them. Put away your cell phone, put away other electronics. I personally, for me at home, my kiddos are getting into video games. I got a 10 and 6-year-old boy at home, and they're getting more and more into video games. And video games are pretty painful for me as a person. Unless it's got like 2 buttons involved, racing games, I can't do them. They're really challenging for me, but I'm trying to learn how to play Minecraft, how to play Roblox, because my boys want me to. And when I'm engaged with them in that makes them happy. It doesn't really make me happy, other than the fact that I'm engaging with my kids and I care about them. With young people, when you learn what they're going through, rather than waiting for them to bring it up again, okay? So give them a minute to express themselves and be with them in the moment and hear that from them. Don't make them have to bring it up later on. So just be present, right? And always come back to that. Come back to them and say to them, hey, I remember that conversation we were having earlier. Can we go in a little further about that? Make time for lightness. Make sure you're having fun with them. Make sure you're laughing with them. And doing this during just your general everyday activities. Sweeping the floor isn't the greatest experience in the world for anybody, except for maybe a 3-year-old that's just discovered a broom. But beyond that, it becomes tedious and it becomes a task or a chore at home. But you can make it fun with your kids to get through that, You can be chasing the dust bunnies around the living room. Our house is all hardwood floors, and we have to literally chase dust bunnies because they go and hide behind our piano, hide behind our other furniture. So that's something we do. We go on dust bunny hunts with our broom at home. That's a way we can take a general everyday task or once a week task, if I'm being honest about it, maybe sometimes every 2 weeks, we're still chasing those dust bunnies because it makes it enjoyable for all of us. Ask follow-up questions so you both know you're interested and you're tracking, that you are here with them and you're beside them and you're moving with them on that, right? So just make sure you come back to these topics of discussion that you have with your kiddos so that they know you're still with them, right? You'll find satisfaction in things for and with your child. even if these things wouldn't otherwise be important to you. So I am musically declined. It doesn't come naturally to me. I enjoy listening to it, but it's not something that I've ever practiced. Well, that's not true. I tried practicing saxophone when I was in 5th grade and was not successful at it. And I haven't gone back to it since. But my oldest son, he thoroughly enjoys singing. He enjoys playing the piano. And so I engage in conversations with him because I know if I tried to engage musically with him, it would not go over well. But I know that's important for him, so I engage with him on that so that he knows that I value him and I value his ideas and his desires as a person. So, and just be mindful that these things that I'm going to suggest to you, these techniques, these tactics, that you're going to have to modify them for each individual person, right? So just remember that each of us is different, and the boys can be different from girls. Girls can be different from boys. One child may respond differently from another, depending on your approach. And the key is to listen to that child, right? Listen to that individual child and discover what works for them with you. And if you do that by being connected, then you're going to be in a better position to reestablish or reinvigorate that relationship with them. So just try those tips for adjusting how you express care, particularly as kids move into their teen years, because they're going to change. So next, how can I modify this to work with my child? Okay, so ask them what they want. What are they comfortable with? Is it okay to give them a hug if no one is around? If people are around? If just family is around? My youngest son, he's not a big hugger or a kisser, but he likes snuggles. So we do a lot of snuggling at home, which is really great, I got to tell you. So instead of a hug, give a pat on the shoulder or back. Caring words might be enough when physical affection is off limits. So make sure you get that, you establish that with that child, with that person. A hug before they head out for school may go over than a hug in front of all their friends as you're dropping them off at the sidewalk in front of school. Not just doing chores or homework, right? A few minutes of undivided attention lets them know they're important to you. You just being with them. Do some physical things together. Play basketball, go for a jog, go for a bike ride, build something with Legos, build something outside, work out. Do what works best for your family. So you do have to modify these depending on who you're with, right? It's just like any relationship that we have. You have to adjust your style to fit with the other person's style, and they're doing the same thing with you. So don't think you're just giving; they're also giving back to you as well. Keep smiling, joking, and laughing together, even if it means laughing at yourself. Man, I laugh at myself so much at home, and the boys just laugh right with me. I do silly stuff all the time, and I do it in the office as well, and sometimes I just do it because I need to laugh, right? And it's not because I'm trying to engage other people in it, it's just because I need it for my own being. Try not to take things too personally. Don't assume that a rejection one day will mean the same thing will happen tomorrow. Remember that kids are working through all kinds of feelings that we are, years away from, that we also went through when we were a kiddo. So just be mindful that they're working through different activities and feelings. All right, we're going to move on to the next bullet, challenge growth. So what exactly does challenge growth look like? I want you to expect them to live up to their potential. I want you to push them to go further. I want you to insist that they take responsibility for their actions. I want you to help them learn from their mistakes and their setbacks. So what can you do? Here's some ways moms, dads, and other parenting adults can challenge growth for their kiddos. Expect your children to do their best, even when doing something they don't really like. 2, making mistakes is part of learning. Teach your children that. They have to fail to succeed. It's part of life. Think about how many times you have failed at something, but you kept practicing at it and trying it over and over again, and eventually you succeeded. So be mindful of that and be patient with them, right? And allow them and make sure that they're aware that making mistakes and failure is part of the experience. It's part of life, and they're going to grow and be better for it, and they're going to learn things from it. And sometimes just taking a minute and helping them to process that and reflecting upon that failure with them will help them to learn and be better the next time they attempt that activity. Highlight their future goals. Talk with them about the things they look forward to or that they dream about. Ask hard questions. Provide alternate explanations and encourage openness to different opinions. These actions help them expand their own thinking. So you're just trying to get them to open up and see some different vantage points and different perspectives, because that will really help them grow and to appreciate the diversity that's surrounding us today. Praise your kids. When they work hard, whether they succeed or fail, praise is important. Let them know that you appreciate their efforts in all that they do.
Hey, Brian, I have a question.
Sure.
So a couple of things. So when you say highlight future goals, do you mean are these supposed to be sort of like long-term goals for the kids? Or, I have a teenager. He has no idea what he wants to do or what college he wants to go to. Right. So when you say highlight future goals, long-term, short-term, doesn't matter?
It really doesn't matter. I think that it's important to focus on both, right? Because they're going to have short-term goals, whether it's the test that's happening on Friday and it's Wednesday, and they got to study for that test, and helping them to prepare and think about that as they move through Wednesday, Thursday into that test on Friday. Or it's, what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to study after you get through high school? I think that there's good reasons for doing both. Whether or not you do both at the same time, maybe a couple different conversations there,
right.
Because whenever you start looking at the big picture and what do you want to do with your life? What do you want to do with the next phase?
It's like a super heavy question.
It's a super heavy question.
Yeah.
And you can really get sucked down into a rabbit hole on it, with all the different things that you're experiencing.
Yeah.
And then you're going to turn around and ask that teenager tomorrow, and that might have all changed.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that there's place for both. There's definitely good reasons for looking at a long-term plan and long-term goals.
Sure.
But, and I think that's going to change depending on the age group that they are. I'm not going to have that. I'm not going to have that future long-term, serious long-term goal conversation with my 6-year-old or 10-year-old.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
But my 15-year-old at home, 16-year-old at home, I'm going to start to have those conversations with them. But there's no rush when they're 16.
Sure.
I'm an advocate of that. I should not have been rushed when I was 16, 17, 18, maybe even 22. And so I'm an advocate that, we need to slow down whenever we're pushing kids into education.
Awesome. So I actually kind of piggybacking off that, you were talking about sort of holding the kiddo accountable. My question is, I want my kids to live up to their potential, but sometimes I question as to whether it's what I think their potential is as to what their real potential is. So a great example is both my kids have something called dysgraphia. For anybody who doesn't know what dysgraphia is, it's basically kind of like dyslexia except with writing. Yep. So it's basically when you can write a whole story. I could verbally tell you an entire story, but the minute you tell me to write it down on paper or type it, it's really difficult to me. So the whole talk to text works great for us. But it does make writing papers very difficult for my kids. Writing stories, they will fight tooth and nail about it. And it's not because they're lazy, it's because they have this, dysgraphia. Yeah. But when does their potential and their priorities kind of go sort of hand in hand? Because my priorities for them are way different than what their priorities are for themselves. Where do you find that balance?
Absolutely. And that's something, Candace, that we're going to talk about a little later when we get into sharing power.
Oh, good. I'm excited.
Yeah, cool.
I'm excited about it.
Cool. If you can wait, can you wait till then?
I can totally wait, Brian.
Great. So we're moving on to provide support. Now, what does this look like? So you want to help to navigate them, guide them through the hard situations and the systems. And again, you're guiding them. You're not paving the way for them. You're helping them to see the hard situation and to evaluate the situation with guidance, but not with telling them how to solve it, right? And you're assisting them and guiding them through a certain system, like say at school, if there's a certain, the way that they do math now, just, I don't understand it at all. My kids bring homework home and I know I can come up with the answer, and I do, but they look at it and they're like, Dad, you didn't do that right. And I'm like, well, I'm looking at the math and the math is spot on. And they're like, you got to do this, that, and the other. And I look at them like, I have no idea what's going on. So that's more them guiding me through that system, but it's the same kind of thing, right? You can just kind of flip that the opposite way and assist them and guiding them through systems that you have experience with. Empowering them, build their confidence to take charge of their own life, right? You're the parent. You are not them. Remember, you have a different name. Surname may be the same, but your first name is the same. It's different. And so empower them to take charge of their own life. Stand up for them when they need it, right? Advocate, but don't overstep their power, but advocate for them and with them. Put in place limits that keep them on track. Everybody needs boundaries. Everybody does. Without boundaries, chaos ensues, and it ensues with with your kiddos at home too, or the kiddos that you manage, right, or you work with. Like, think of that first day of summer, whenever the parents, you got your kids at home, you kind of might wish they're still in school, but your kids are at home, and it's the first day you've had them back in the house. It's the first day they're off, and everybody just goes wild. There's no boundaries established. Kids are on their maybe on their pads all day, maybe playing video games all day. Maybe they don't get out of bed for the entire day. And you, as the parent that happens to be at home that day, maybe you kind of do the same thing. Or you're cleaning and just trying to stay on your same routine that you've had for the last 9 months. If you're a stay-at-home parent, stay on that same routine that you've been on for the last 9 months when they were at school 5 days a week. So you're going about your business in the house, trying to make dinner, and you're kind of just ignoring them. So that is not establishing boundaries for either one of you, right? So things can go down south pretty quick for you as a family unit and for them if boundaries aren't established. And so we're working on right now. We still got a couple days left in school, unfortunately. So we've been talking about slowly throughout this week, like, what is our day going to look like when we're at home for the summer? How is that going to work? What boundaries do you want? But boundaries don't you want? And do I allow them to, are we allowing them to establish all of those? Absolutely not. But we're allowing them to establish some of them and be part of that process. So what can you do as the care provider, as the child support system to provide support? You can help them to solve problems. Offer information and practical help, or lend them something they may need, right? Just assisting them, not solving the problem for them, helping them to work through it. Show the young person how to ask for help when they need it. Make sure they know that it's okay to ask for help. And the best way to do this is by modeling for them, right? Just on daily household routines or daily activities that you're doing with them. Ask them for assistance sometimes. Ask them for help. Ask your partner. Ask your neighbor for help. Just model asking for help. There's kind of this thing in Vermont where people don't like to ask for help. That they feel like they can do everything themselves, but it's really important to ask for help, especially whenever your kiddo's around, because we do also really truly need the community that surrounds us, especially you military folks out there and you military families. You're going to find yourselves in situations where your soldier or your service member is taken away for weekend trainings, as you know, sometimes for multiple weeks in the summertime. Those that just went through the JRTC for the Army Guard in Vermont, some of those soldiers are just now getting back home, and so you're going to need support at those times, and it's really good for your kids to see you asking your neighbors, asking your family members for support. And now you're going to want to be mindful of what you ask who in front of them, but if it's appropriate for them to be around for it, allow them to experience seeing you do that. Shift the levels of support. Give more support when young people are struggling and less when they're making progress. Even if they run into a stumbling point, but they've been cranking along at an activity, at a report, at a project, and they've been going along with it, but all of a sudden they hit a roadblock and they're really kind of struggling with it. Step back and give them the opportunity to solve that problem on their own. And then if they do come to you for help, go to them just with help and guidance, not with the answer. I know I struggle with that sometimes when I'm working on projects with my boys like Legos, or we got into some building of airplane models over this winter. And I built a lot of models when I was younger, and so it was really easy for me to kind of jump in and just want to do it for them. But I had to stop, remind myself that this is their project. They don't need me to solve the problem for them. What they need is some assistance and guidance in solving that problem, right? So just take a step back, and by taking that step back, you're going to see their skills and their confidence build that much more than you just doing it for them. Demonstrate. When you teach your child a skill, demonstrate it by breaking it down into smaller steps. Kiddos don't process things the same way that adults do. We can process multiple steps at a time, right? We can take in that information, multiple step process, and we can kind of break that down to figure out what we need to do. And you don't gain that skill until you're in your late teens, right? And so slowing it down for the kiddos, especially the younger they are, slow it down even more. And when I say slow it down, I mean breaking it down into smaller steps for them, like 1 bite instead of 2 and 3 bites at a time. Find people who can address this issue. And this is, again, asking for help. When your children are not getting the help they need, this is when you need to step in and you need to advocate for your child. If you don't have somebody that's in your community that can assist you with that issue, with that problem, or assist them with that, go outside of that community and see what you can find. Ask those other community members that you're involved with, do they know somebody that can help out with this situation? All right, getting into the next one, sharing power. This can be a little controversial, so just hear what I have to say, please. All right. So now, what does sharing power look like, right? So it looks like respect, taking them seriously and treating them fairly. It looks like inclusivity. It looks like involving them in the decisions that affect them. It looks like working with them to solve problems and reach goals. And again, working with them to solve problems, not solving it for them. Number 4, create opportunities for them to take action and lead that activity, that program, that event, whatever you're doing, give them the opportunity to lead it. I think there was a question on this one, right, Candace?
Yes, there was. We actually had someone write to us and ask, what are some ways to talk about sharing the power if a parent is absent or during their absence?
Yeah, so this is a great one, especially for our military community that's on the phone here. And so this is definitely going to be a bit challenging for you all, right? Because one of the partners, one of the parents, the guardians are away, and so you can do this via your FaceTime calls or your Skype calls, but allowing the parent that's away to be involved in that decision making too, and maybe that's a conversation that you and that parent have before you involve the kiddo in it, but because the two parents that are involved, right, the two caregivers, you want to make sure that you're both on the same page, so that you're giving the same message and power sharing. Whereas instead of if I'm the one that's left at home and I make that decision without my partner, and then all of a sudden my partner returns home and they're like, I don't know that I was willing to give up all that power for that activity, for that decision, for that household dynamic, but you gave it up. You, in a sense, would have then given it away for them. And so make sure you engage them in a conversation beforehand, and then, if possible, bring the kiddo into that conversation after you and your partner or you and your spouse have sorted that out. Yeah, it's certainly going to be a little more challenging, and there may be times when that's not a possibility, But if it's a bigger power sharing thing that you're looking at as a family, make sure you do your darndest to engage them in that to the best of your ability beforehand. So what can you do to share power? Okay, so let them pick shared activities. They can sometimes decide what you'll do together and what you're going to talk about. Allow them to control the conversation for a change, which I know can be really hard. I know it's hard for me at home. And whenever they are talking, take a step back and don't jump in too fast. When they don't make a quick decision or think of things to talk about or things to do, give them a moment. Remember, they're children, they're teenagers. They have lots of different things and ideas running through their brain that they're trying to catalog to see what they want to do at that any given moment. So just give them the opportunity to come up with that. Don't just jump in. If you type A's out there, that's going to be hard. So just really put some effort into letting them be the decision maker there. Sometimes it helps to let them pick from a couple of different choices that work for the schedule and for your budget, You're not going to be able to go to Disney World all the time. One, it's like 24 hours away from here, and it's really expensive. The daily cost for a Disney World pass is over $100 a person right now. And that's just to get in the park, right? And ride the ride. So you have to be considerate of your budget and what time you have in your schedule. So sometimes what may help, and especially for the younger ones, is to give them a couple of 2, 3, 4 different activities that they can then choose from, right? So you're not relinquishing all the power to them, but you're engaging them in that and giving them some amount of power, which will just improve their confidence and improve their decision-making capabilities. Offer choices, what we just talked about, right? Rather than always giving instructions. So what could you do differently to tackle this problem? Try that method instead. Slow it down, ask them, how would you do this? What would you do differently? How can we do this? Is there a different way that this can happen? Just slow it all down a little bit. Learn from your kids and show it. Kids have a lot to teach us as adults. These are things that we may have gone through when we were a kid, 40 some years ago, 30 some years ago, but remember that they are human beings and they can teach us things and they have a lot to teach us. So let them know when you've learned something from them and that you're excited about it. When my boys teach me something on Minecraft that I can actually replicate without them being there, I'm pretty excited about that because I learned something new. Take time to understand each other's point of view. You're going to disagree. It's just going to happen, And if you can, reach a consensus or a compromise. If you can come to agree with them, admit it and celebrate their persuasiveness, right? So be open-minded whenever you go into conversations with them, and remember that you don't have all the answers. You certainly don't have all the answers for them. You might have a lot of these answers figured out for yourself, but remember, they are a different human being. When you need to make a decision that your kids might disagree with, explain the final choice to them. Engage them in why that decision had to be made, right? And thank them, at the same time, thank them for taking time of sharing their perspective with you, and thank them for going along with the program, if not agreeing with the program. Bottom line up front is that collaboration is at the heart of sharing power. So engaging them in these conversations, letting them be part of it, and it actually being a conversation and being a decision-making process instead of you being like the dictator of the house, saying what's going to happen, engaging them in that. And that's going to help them to be a more powerful person and a better individual. Now, I understand that some of this can be a little uncomfortable for some families out there and for some individuals. So I'd like you to keep these thoughts in mind, right? Is that sharing power, it doesn't mean letting the kids make all their own decisions. Parents do and should have more power and authority than your children, particularly when the children are young. And as parents, as adults, we know more have more resources, and are honestly physically stronger than them. And so sometimes we're going to have to just make that decision, right? You're going to have to tell them how it is at times. So part of our job in raising our children is to teach them, guide them, make demands on them, and set limits that help them grow. But engaging them in the process is super important, super important. More power isn't the same as all power. Though parents have more power in parent-child relationships, our kids also have and need power in that relationship as well. Discovering how we share power in our relationships and encouraging kiddos the power is to grow as they mature is a core task of parenting. So as they're going to grow and mature through their years, you want to engage them in more of that sharing and power. Allow them to have more opportunities to determine what's going on, right? In the household, in the weekend, in the day, as they grow. Think about appropriate developmental stages. Like Spider-Man says, with more power comes more responsibility. And absolutely, this means treating children with love, respect, and fairness without manipulating or coercing them or threatening them in ways that harm this relationship that you're reinvigorating or reestablishing with them, or just developing and strengthening, right? Because absolutely all these techniques are not just for rejuvenating or reestablishing. They're actually great techniques for strengthening your relationship with kiddos in your world. And abusive power can include physical or emotional violence or just manipulation, including withholding affection or approval in order to get our way. So you don't want to come down on them when they disagree with you. You want to work through that disagreement with them. Right? And absolutely, am I saying that there aren't consequences that need to happen in a household or whenever you're working with children? Absolutely not. It's just how we apply that and how we approach that, right? From a power sharing standpoint versus a I'm the adult here, I'm the parent, you're going to listen to me, and this is why, right? So it's empowering them. And not just taking for them or coming down on them super hard. And that can really be challenging at times, because there are times that I just want to pick my little boy up by his ear and drag him into his bedroom and put him in his bed and tell him, that's it, you are here for the rest of the day. But how does that empower him to become a better person? How does that engage him with what happened and why are we having this conversation to begin with? Well, to be honest, there's no conversation there. That's just me telling him what I need to do and what I need him to do for me, right? That's not walking him through why he needs to do this for himself or for the others that are involved in our world. That's me telling him what I need for me, not what he needs for him. If we want kids to become responsible, they need to learn to use power. They need opportunities to make choices, work through problems, make mistakes, and learn from their actions. Otherwise, they won't develop responsibility. And we must let go for them to grow. We must let go of some of this power to allow them to become an adult, to become a teenager. We need to let go of some of this power for them to grow and develop as a caring, loving, powerful human being. This is going to be different for different families. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that your house needs to sound and look like my house does, because it does not. And that's not going to make strong kids. It's not going to make strong communities. The sharing of power happens in different ways for different families and different for different kids in different places and cultures, right? So you need to take into account who your individual kiddo, who you are, right? Who the other members in your house are, how you want your house to be managed, right? Or your family to be managed. And how does that fit for each individual? it's a giant puzzle, right? We all have to be constantly moving and shifting to conform, not to conform, but to fit and to work with other people well. And we have to think of our kids and as our family as other people. Sometimes that can be hard to do whenever we're faced with a stressful situation, or we're feeling tired, or we're feeling a little hangry maybe. Sometimes this can be really difficult. But we need to think about, how's this best for them? And how's this best for us, right? A lot of what I'm saying here is not for me and I, it's for us and them, right? And we. You just need to be aware of that. Expanding possibilities. And what does this look like? So this is going to look like inspiring them to see possibilities for their future. Exposing them to new ideas, experiences, and places. And introducing them to people who can help them grow. Well, what does this look like for us that are working with youth, right? This is going to look like spending time with people. Find ways for your children to spend time with people who are different from your family. Go to the community park. A lot of places, a lot of towns in Vermont have summer concert series at their town halls or at their little town gazebo. And so go to that once a month, right? Go to it and let them engage with other people. Even though you look across the green and they look different from you, guess what? They are, and they should be, because they're not you. So, but that's what makes our world so special, and that's what's going to make your child a stronger person, is by letting them engage with them. Am I saying that you can then leave? No. You should be watching this all go down, and maybe even go over and engage with that person, especially if it's an adult, because there are bad people out there. But we should not just assume they're bad people, right? Just because they look differently from what we do. Kids are curious. Ask them questions. When your kid seems curious about an activity or topic or an issue, ask questions such as, what strikes you as interesting about this? Or why did you ask that question? Or what's drawing you towards that activity? So just be engaged and be interested in what they're interested about, and then that's just going to spawn more interest and excitement and curiosity within your kiddo. And really, it's going to do that same stuff for you also. Expose them to different people, places, cultures, ideas, and vocations. So introduce them to a wide range of people. Take them to different places. Just because you may not have a large budget to be able to travel to Paris, doesn't mean that you can't go to a local art gallery and see some art that's inspired from Parisian art, right? Or even see some actual Parisian artists' work that's in Vermont. So you can do and expose them to different cultures and different places without actually going to them, right? There are ways that you can do that within our state. Start with ones that they're curious about, right? If there's something that piques their interest, take them to a museum that has that stuff involved in it. Encourage them to try new things. And maybe try it together. If you've never done it, or maybe you've had experience doing it, engage them in that. It's a lot of fun. Connect your kiddos with people you know in your extended family or community who can explore with them their areas of personal interest or strength. Allow them to go off with auntie or uncle. Allow them to go off with your neighbor that you trust and you know is going to be safe with your child and be responsible with your child. Allow them to go and enjoy something with a different person, right? That's good for them to grow and to learn. It's good for you. So being a little selfish about it, it's good for you because we need a break, right? You need a break as a parent, as a caregiver. You need a break from them sometimes. And it's good for that auntie or uncle or your friend, right? Or grandma or grandpa, whoever that child is going out with, because guess what? Your child is going to teach that person something as well. Model being a curious learner by asking questions and sharing what you're learning in your own life. And remember, learn things from your kids. Don't just be constantly teaching them allow them to engage you in their favorite activities as well. Some of you may be reluctant to connect with others. Maybe you're saying, we would like to have other supportive adults in our child's lives. We would like there to be other people we can count on when our kids need them. Maybe you're saying, yet we sometimes are slow to connect our kids with other adults, ideas, and experiences. We may worry that these connections could, 1, lead other people to meddle with our parenting and our family. 2, reflect badly on us if our kids turn to other adults for advice. And 3, it could influence our kids in ways we don't like. We also hear about adults who may take advantage of our kids, which is particularly scary. Absolutely. Like I said a few minutes ago, there are scary people out there. There are bad people out there, right? But just remember, just because we have the perception that they're scary, doesn't mean that they are. You have to take a minute and engage and get to know them, and then you can make a more educated decision, right? Well, in reality, though, the vast majority of adults are trustworthy. And of course, parenting adults should take steps to ensure that relationships are safe and appropriate. Check who they're going to be with, right? Make sure you have a relationship with them. The good news is that relationships with our other adults can enhance teens' relationships with their parents. I know that that's where it gets sticky a lot. I don't have teenagers yet, but I work with teenagers, and I have heard from lots of parents and from their kids, their teens, that they're having a rough time with their parents or with their teen, conversely, if it's the parent. And so, but allowing them to have other relationships with other people is giving them trust, right? Giving them power, and it's giving them other resources, right? Because I know that I'm not the perfect father. I won't be. I think that's impossible. But by me allowing my boys to engage with other men and with other women, adults that I trust, that I have relationships with, it only strengthens their relationship with that other person. And in time, it strengthens that relationship with me as well. Because I know they're going to be a better person, and they're going to be more receptive sometimes to another adult, to another person, than rather hearing their dad lecture them for the 3rd time about the same thing. Our opportunity as parents is to help make connections that we trust and will bring out the best in our kids. So let's have a look at some conversation starters. Some discussion starters for families whenever you're just starting down this road of revitalizing relationship or strengthening relationship with the kiddo. So some discussion starters for families might be, for expressing care. When are times that you've felt close as a family? What made that time memorable? What sacrifices have others made for your family? Have those sacrifices affected you? What do you enjoy doing together as a family that you have not been able to do lately? What do you enjoy about that activity? You can use these questions to talk with your children about relationships within your family. The goal is to get to know each other better so that you can enjoy each other more throughout the rest of your lives. And just remember, there are no right or wrong answers. There are no right or wrong answers. So let's continue on down that same discussion starter for families path. So challenge growth. How has someone inspired you to take on a challenge? How did they motivate you? How does challenging other people to grow either help or hurt your relationships? What are some challenges your family has faced together? How did you grow while dealing with those challenges? Providing support. Who is someone you admire who encourages you to pursue your goals? What does this mean? What does this person do that really helps you? What was a recent time you struggled with a challenge? How did people in your family in this family encourage you? Have people tried to help you when you didn't want it? How did you deal with that? Few for sharing power. How do different members of your family influence others in your family? Think of at least one way each person influences each other family member. What are easy topics for making decisions in your family? What areas are harder? Think about who makes which decisions in your family. This can include scheduling, budgeting, activities, cooking, or chores. How might these parts of your family be different if another family member made those decisions? Just have fun thinking about those possibilities. Lastly, expanding possibilities. A few discussion starters. What is one thing you really enjoy that someone else in the family introduced you to? This could be something like music, ideas, or foods. Tell how they introduced you to it. What is enjoyable about spending time with people who are different from your family? What can make that hard? Who are significant people outside your immediate family who have had a big influence on your life? How have they influenced you?
Hey, Brian, we actually have another question that came in via email, if you don't mind me asking that now.
Great.
So when a service member has returned from a deployment, how can their spouse support the reconnection with their children?
Yeah, so I think one, that's a great question. Thank you, whoever sent that in. One, you're going to have to do your best to catch them up on some of the stuff that they may have missed that maybe has changed in the household since they have been gone. And hopefully some of that has been going on as they've been away from home. If possible, I know that communication isn't always possible whenever they're removed from the home. But to the best of your ability, keep them up on to speed on that as things come and go throughout their time away. But also remember when they return that some of that they didn't experience that firsthand, and so you're certainly going to have to be patient with them and re-engage them in a lot of those conversations. So one of the things that I would strongly suggest not doing is saying, you remember we had this conversation a month ago or 2 months ago or 3 months ago, because there's a possibility that they won't, right? A good possibility because they weren't experiencing it firsthand like you were and like the household was, right? So giving them space to come into those experiences, but maybe at a faster pace, right? So just catching them up to speed on those maybe finer things or bigger things that have changed within the household, right? And really think about that power sharing portion or the sharing power portion and what maybe has changed since they've been away from the home in that regard. What have you enabled the kids to be able to do a little bit more than maybe they were doing before your spouse was removed from the household or had to leave? And allowing them to engage with your children as much as possible. Just giving them space to be able to reconnect with the kid.
We actually had another question. It seems like we had a lot of questions about, we just had some soldiers come back from a deployment, and of course we had JRTC that just happened, so it sounds like we're getting a lot of questions about separation. So if the returning service member needs to revitalize their relationship and of course also reestablish parental duties with their kids, should the spouse steer their children towards the service member? So for example, go ask your father or go ask your mother, whoever the service member is, rather than making the decision themselves?
So I don't think there's one answer there. I think that's a great conversation that you need to have with that spouse that just returned home. What do they want? and when do they want it? Maybe they need a week, maybe they need 2, maybe they need 3 to kind of re-engage with quote unquote normal society and being back in the home whenever they've just been living out of a tent and spending nights in a cot for a month or 2 or 12. And so giving them space to come into it a little bit on their own, not that they don't need gentle nudges, but giving them space to be able to come into that and then engaging them in that, like, hey, are you ready to take these on? Or do you think maybe not ready do you think you're in a place where, and just think about the language that's going to work best for you and your partner and your spouse. But when they're ready, absolutely let them take that on if that's something they want to. And then eventually, right, it'll be like it was before they left or close to it. And you'll be just sharing that power naturally, but allowing them to come into that, I would say, is the best, but definitely giving them gentle nudges if they seem reluctant to take that on. But just like we need to be whenever we're letting our kiddos make decisions, adults need our patience as well, right? Especially if they just went through a deployment and we back at home don't know what that deployment was. We don't know exactly what happened on that training exercise. And there's likely things that they're still processing, even though they're back home, and they're going to be processing a lot of that stuff for a while. So being patient with them, giving them the time and space to do that, but with some gentle nudges, encouraging them to re-engage as they're ready. All right, now it's your turn. Okay, we've been talking about the 5 strategies as we've gone through this slide. So now what I need you to do is I'm going to ask you to do some things for you and for your family. So number one, what I want you to do is I want you to go back and look at those discussion starters, and I want you to try one of those 2 discussion starters with your family over the course of the next weekend that you come into or day that you have together. Something that I've been starting to do or have been doing with my family at home is we try to do one of these discussion starters at dinner at night. And it just kind of leads to a little conversation about the day and about how we want things to go throughout within our family unit. Don't lay out too many of them. Just pick 1 or 2 to start, but check them off as you go so that you keep an eye on what ones you've tried. The next one I'm going to do is I want you to work on one of the 5 key principles that we've been talking about today. So what is the one thing you can do? I'm turning this around on you now, not about them. It's your turn. Okay. What is one thing you can do to strengthen that part of your relationship? So power sharing. That's a hard one for people to do. So maybe that's not the first one you want to focus on. Maybe you want to focus on expressing care. Maybe that's challenging for you. There are some people out there that expressing care is difficult. So maybe that's something you need to work on. How can you express care? How can you show your children that you enjoy being with them and that you care about the things that are important with them? So I want you to I want you to make a little statement. In the next week, I will express care to strengthen my relationship with my child or children. So that's the challenge for you. So bottom line up front is that you already have a relationship with your child. And likely is the case that you already have a pretty positive relationship with your child. Can that relationship be better? For sure. And we should all be challenging ourselves all the time to strengthen that relationship with our child and really with everybody that's around us. A lot of these skills, a lot of these techniques can be used with all age groups. It's just a matter of what spin you put on it and how you approach it. And these 5 keys can help us keep perspective on what really matters in our relationships with kids, right? It's what really matters to them and to us. So just think about those. Think about those things that we can do. Some parts of those relationships may really be going well, and some may not. Some may be challenged. And so look at those 5 key principles, and what are the areas that you're most challenged in, and maybe pick 1 or 2 to focus on for a little while. And we aren't going to be perfect. They're not going to be perfect, right? And what we think of as perfect in our minds is going to be different than what they think of as perfect. But we can all find at least one area where relationships can grow, and we can strengthen them. And we can ask each other to help us through the ups and through the downs that we experience. And lastly, don't forget that I asked you, and hopefully you did it, made a commitment challenge for yourself and for your family. That's all I got. Thank you so much. Please make sure you check out the resources page if you'd like to dive a little deeper into this topic. There's lots of resources out there. I'm not the expert, but I've had some experience working with youth, and I really enjoy doing so. And I hope that this will strengthen your relationship for yourself and really for your kiddos in your lives. Thank you.
Awesome, Brian. Thank you so much, and just appreciate, this was amazing information. I was taking notes as you were giving the presentation today, so really do appreciate it. We hope you have enjoyed this second time around multimedia presentation. Check back at the Family Programs website for more downloadable content. And as always, remember, if you have any suggestions for future topics, you can contact me. I'm Candace, or you can, of course, contact Michaela or Marcy. Our contact info is located within this presentation. Thanks again, Brian. Really appreciate it.